Hi, and welcome to today's Daily Chronicle. Today is Friday, October 11th, 2024. Ethel Kennedy, social activist and widow of Robert F. Kennedy, dies at age 96. Ethel Kennedy poses for a portrait during the 2012 Sundance Film Festival on January 22, 2012 in Park City, Utah. The Kennedy matriarch died Thursday at age 96. Boston, Massachusetts. Ethel Kennedy, the widow of senior Robert F. Kennedy, who raised their 11 children after he was assassinated and remained dedicated to social causes and the family's legacy for decades thereafter, died on Thursday, her family said. She was 96. Kennedy had been hospitalized after suffering a stroke in her sleep on October 3rd, her family said. It is with our hearts full of love that we announce the passing of our amazing grandmother, Jo Kennedy III, posted on X. She died this morning from complications related to a stroke suffered last week. The Kennedy matriarch, whose children were Kathleen, Joseph II, Robert Jr., David, Courtney, Michael, Carrie, Christopher, Max, Douglas, and Rory, was one of the last remaining member of a generation that included President John F. Kennedy. Her family said she had recently enjoyed seeing many of her relatives before falling ill. She has had a great summer and transitioned into fall, said a family statement issued after she was hospitalized. Every day, she enjoyed time with her children, nieces, nephews, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. She was able to get out on the water, visit the pier, and enjoy many lunches and able to get out on the water. Dinners with family. It has been a gift to us all and to her as well. A millionaire's daughter who married the future senator and attorney general in 1950, Ethel Kennedy, had endured more death by the age of 40 for the whole world to see than most would in a lifetime. She was by Robert F. Kennedy's side when he was fatally shot in the kitchen of the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles on June 5, 1968, just after winning the Democratic presidential primary in California. Her brother-in-law, President John F. Kennedy, had been assassinated in Dallas less than 5 years earlier. Her parents were killed in a plane crash in 1955, and her brother died in a 1966 crash. Her son David Kennedy later died of a drug overdose, son Michael Kennedy in a skiing accident, and nephew John F. Kennedy Jr. in a plane crash. Another nephew, Michael Skakel, was found guilty of murder in 2002, although a judge in 2013 ordered a new trial and the Connecticut Supreme Court vacated his conviction in 2018. In 2019, she was grieving again after granddaughter Cerise Kennedy Hill died of an apparent drug overdose. One wonders how much this family must have expected to absorb. Family friend Philip Johnson, founder of the Robert F. Kennedy Foundation, told the Boston Herald after Michael Kennedy's death. Ethel Kennedy sustained herself through her Catholic faith and devotion to family. I knew how difficult it was going to be for her to raise that big family without the guiding role and influence that Bobby would have provided. Her mother-in-law, Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy, recalled in her memoir, Times to Remember, and of course, she realized this too, fully and keenly. Yet, she did not give way. She founded the Robert F. Kennedy Center for Justice and Human Rights soon after her husband's death and advocated for causes including gun control and human rights. She rarely spoke about her husband's assassination. When her filmmaker daughter, Rory, brought it up in the 2012 HBO documentary, Ethel, she couldn't share her grief. When we lost Daddy, she began, then teared up and asked that her youngest daughter talk about something else. In 2008, she joined brother-in-law Ted Kennedy and niece Caroline Kennedy in endorsing Senator Barack Obama for president, likening him to her late husband. She made several trips to the White House during the Obama years, receiving the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2014 and meeting Pope Francis in 2015. President Barack Obama awards Ethel Kennedy the Presidential Medal of Freedom on November 24, 2014, during a ceremony in the East Room of the White House. Many of her progeny became well known. Daughter Kathleen became Lieutenant Governor of Maryland. Joseph represented Massachusetts in Congress. Courtney married Paul Hill, who had been wrongfully convicted of the IRA bombing. Carrie became a human rights activist and president of the RFK Center. Christopher ran for governor of Illinois. Max served as a prosecutor in Philadelphia, and Douglas reported for Fox News Channel. Her son, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., also became a national figure, although not as liberal in the family tradition. First known as an environmental lawyer, he evolved into a conspiracy theorist who spread false theories about vaccines. He ran for president as an independent after briefly challenging President Joe Biden, and his name remained on ballots in multiple states after he suspended his campaign and endorsed Donald Trump. Ethel Kennedy did not comment publicly on her son's actions, although several other family members denounced him. Decades earlier, she seemed to thrive on her in-laws' rising power. She was an enthusiastic backer of JFK's 1960 run, and during the Kennedy administration, hosted some of the era's most well-attended parties at their Hickory Hill estates in McLean, Virginia, including one where historian Arthur M. Schlesinger, Jr. was pushed fully clothed into a swimming pool. In the Kennedy spirit, she also was known as an avid and highly competitive tennis player and a compulsive planner. Petite and peppy, Ethel, who doesn't look one bit the outdoorsy type, considers outdoor activities so important for the children that she has arranged her busy cabinet wife schedule so she can personally take them on 2 daily outings, the Washington Post reported in 1962. In February of that year, she accompanied her husband on a round-the-world goodwill tour, stopping in Japan, Hong Kong, Italy, and other countries. She said it was important for Americans to meet ordinary people overseas. People have a distinct liking for Americans, she told the Post, but the communists have been so vocal. It was a surprise for some Asians to hear America's point of view. It is good for Americans to travel and get our viewpoint across. Kennedy was born Ethel Skakel on April 11, 1928, in Chicago, the sixth of 7 children of coal magnate George Skakel and Anne Branagh Skakel, a devout Roman Catholic. She grew up in a 31-room English country manor house in Greenwich, Connecticut, and attended Greenwich Academy before graduating from the Convent of the Sacred Heart in the Bronx in 1945. She met Robert Kennedy through his sister Jean, her roommate at Manhattanville College in New York. They moved to Charlottesville, Virginia, where he finished his last year of law school at the University of Virginia, and then in 1957 they bought Hickory Hill from by John and Jacqueline Kennedy, who had bought it in 1953. Robert Kennedy became chief counsel to the Senate Select Committee in 1957. He later was appointed Attorney General by his brother, the newly elected President Kennedy. She had supported her husband in his successful 1964 campaign for the U.S. Senate in New York, and his subsequent presidential bid. Pregnant with her 11th child when he was gunned down by Sirhan Sirhan, her look of shock and horror was captured by photographers in images that remain indelible decades later. The assassination traumatized the family, especially son David Kennedy, who watched the news in a hotel room. He was just days before his 13th birthday and never recovered, struggling with addiction problems for years and overdosing in 1984. In 2021, she said Sirhan Sirhan should not be released from prison, a view not shared by some others in her family. 2 years later, a California panel denied him parole. Although Ethel Kennedy was linked to several men after her husband's death, most notably singer Andy Williams, she never remarried. In April 2008, Ethel Kennedy visited Indianapolis on the 40th anniversary of the assassination of the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. A monument there commemorated King's death and the speech her husband had given that night in 1968, which was accredited with averting rioting in the city. Of all the Kennedy women, she was the one I would end up admiring the most. Harry Belafonte would write of her. She wasn't play acting. She looked at you and immediately got what you were talking about. Often, in the coming years, when Bobby was balking at something we wanted him to do for the moment, I'd take my case to Ethel. We have to talk to him, she'd say, and she would. Ethel Kennedy joined President Obama and former President Bill Clinton, each held one of her hands, as they climbed stairs to lay a wreath at President Kennedy's gravesite during a November 2013 observance of the 50th anniversary of JFK's death. The nonprofit center she founded remains dedicated to advancing human rights through litigation, advocacy, education, and inspiration, giving annual awards to journalists, authors, and others who have made significant contributions to human rights. She also was active in the Coalition of Gun Control, Special Olympics, and the Earth Conservation Corps, and she showed up in person, participating in a 2016 demonstration in support of higher pay for farm workers in Florida, and a 2018 hunger strike against the Trump administration's immigration policies. Hickory Hill was sold in 2009 for $8.25 million, and Ethel Kennedy divided her time between homes in Hyannisport, Massachusetts, and Palm Beach, Florida. Some students are fighting to stay in college after FAFSA delayed financial aid. Brenda H. almost didn't make it to her first day of college. She tried to apply for financial aid through the free application of Federal Student Aid, FAFSA, 4 times, but encountered glitch after glitch, including a widespread bug that impacted students whose parents or spouses don't have social security numbers. Brenda's parents are both undocumented, which is why Brenda requested to keep their last name out of this story. It wasn't until her 5th attempt this spring that Brenda was finally able to submit her FAFSA. That delay meant she committed to a college, California State University, Northridge, without knowing if she could afford it. I was entering college blind, she says, as she thinks back to that decision. When her financial aid package finally came, she says she was speechless. My mouth dropped to the floor. There was only a few weeks left before school started, and her award offer was much lower than she had planned for. I was mad at FAFSA, she says, so I went in blind, I went in confused, I went in angry. The FAFSA debacle was followed students like Brenda into the school year as the repercussions of month-long delays from the last financial aid cycle continued to play out. Many colleges traditionally ask students to commit to their school by May 1st, but the National College Attainment Network estimated that compared to last year, about 408,000 fewer high school seniors successfully completed their FAFSA as of that week. Some colleges responded by pushing their commitment deadlines, but the delays still left Brenda and others like her forced to make all kinds of decisions about college without knowing how they would pay for it. Now, many of those students are fighting to stay in school. For Brenda, that meant scrambling to find housing nearby, a room that's 30-minute bus drive from campus, and making her own lunches to save money. She hoped to get more aid out of the next FAFSA cycle, which has again been delayed. The U.S. Department of Education began testing this year's form with a limited number of students on October 1st. The form's traditional release date, the agency says it's working to fix glitches and release the application to all students by December 1st. I'm wondering how I'm going to pay for next semester. Brenda's mom is a seamstress, and her dad works for a bulk spice market. Nobody in her family has ever had a college degree, so she didn't grow up thinking she'd get a degree. That changed in 11th grade when Brenda started taking drum lessons in the basement for a local nonprofit in downtown Los Angeles. Kid City Hope Place serves low-income students with educational programs, financial aid help, and activities meant to get them excited about higher education. I remember I was so scared of the upstairs kids because they were all about college, all about their future. And back in junior year, I didn't think I would go to college, Brenda says. Kim Fabian, the project director at Kid City, jokes that their music program is a way to draw kids to college access program upstairs. It is actually one of the tactics we use for some of the students who might fall between the cracks, that aren't high achieving but aren't low achieving, and they get stuck somewhere in the middle. They just need a little push. That was the case for Brenda, who says, I just didn't see a future for myself. But once I started going to the college access program at the end of my junior year, they encouraged me to apply to college and encouraged me to apply for the FAFSA. They encouraged me to just go for it, like, you won't regret this. Brenda's counselors told her that because her family was low income, she would likely qualify for substantial financial aid. Excited about the prospect of going to a 4-year university, Brenda forged ahead and applied to colleges last fall and then to the FAFSA. Fabian didn't know what to say earlier this year when FAFSA application process failed every single Kid City family who applied. It felt like a broken promise, she said. It was impossible to not feel that guilty feeling because we're intermediaries that are supposed to make these dreams happen, make this possible, give you a hand, talk you through the process. Even though the delays caused Brenda anxiety, she felt better when she saw her friends from higher income families receive enough aid to cover their education. She was certain the same would be true for her. But when Brenda's financial aid offer finally came in July, just a few weeks before school was set to begin, I completely panicked, she says. She received a Pell Grant for $970 per semester and was offered $2,750 in federal student loans each semester. That aid amount just about covers her tuition. But she's on her own when it comes to housing, food, books, and transportation. And while Brenda did manage to cobble together enough money to start classes in the fall, she says the financial stress has made it hard to focus on her actual education. It makes me think about my future, and sometimes I'll catch myself not focusing in class because I'm wondering how I'm going to pay for the next semester. Not just an application, but a gateway to a life plan. Brenda is majoring in psychology. She has struggled with her own mental health and couldn't get the help she needed, so she wants to become a therapist to help kids like her. But she's worried about whether she can afford to finish her degree. Brenda says this whole experience made her realize that, for her, the FAFSA isn't just a bureaucratic application that results in a sum of money. It's a gateway to a life plan. Had she gotten her aid package in a timely manner, she could have made more of an informed decision about college and applied to scholarships, and maybe the entire thing would have been less stressful. This whole process, everything I experienced, just traumatized me. She says it was frustrating to hear the form was delayed again this year. But every time she feels discouraged about paying for her education, she thinks about her 2- and 3-year-old nieces. I want to be a role model for them. I want them to know you can go to college. You are not bound to be like your parents. You are not bound to be like your grandparents. You can go to college and make a name for yourself. As she waits to apply to the next FAFSA, she's trying to stay focused on her coursework and her newfound independence. Recently, she stayed out past midnight for the first time and had her first sleepover. I was like, wow, I feel so independent. I feel so adult. I've been experiencing a lot more in college than I did in the past 17 years of my life. Now, Brenda hopes she can keep having those new life experiences, but it'll depend on whether she can afford to keep getting an education she never even dreamed of. The death toll in gang attack on a Haitian town rises to at least 115. Relatives carry the coffin of Jean-Louis Jean Gratian, who was killed during an attack by armed gangs at his funeral in Pointe-Saint, Haiti, on Tuesday. Pointe-Saint de Haiti. The death toll in a brutal gang attack last week on a small town in central Haiti has risen to 115, a local official told the Associated Press on Wednesday. The attack on residents of Pointe-Saint on October 3rd was one of the biggest massacres that Haiti has seen in recent history. Miriam Fiever, mayor of the nearby city of St. Mark, said Wednesday that the toll had risen to 115 and would likely keep rising because authorities are still looking for bodies and haven't been able to access certain areas of town. We are working to make sure that the population is protected, she said in a phone interview. The UN had previously said that at least 70 people were killed last week when the Grand Griffe gang invaded the town in the central Artibonite region. The victims included babies, young mothers, and the elderly, with the gang approaching Pointe-Saint via canoes to catch residents by surprise, according to a local human rights group. T. Charlotte Charles, wounded by a bullet during armed gang attacks, sits on a bed at St. Nicholas Hospital in St. Mark, Haiti, on Sunday, October 6, 2024. Survivors have questions why authorities did not do anything to stop the attack, since the gang had warned in a video posted on social media that it planned to target Pointe-Saint. A day after the attack, officials replaced the police commissioner who oversees the Artibonite region, which has seen a surge of gang violence in recent years, with at least 20 criminal groups operating in the area, according to the UN. More than 6,200 survivors have fled Pointe-Saint and temporarily settled in the coastal city of St. Mark and surrounding areas. A majority of them are staying with relatives, but more than 750 others have nowhere to go and are sleeping on the floors of a church, a school, and a public plaza in St. Mark, according to the UN's International Organization of Migration. As St. Mark struggles with the sudden influx of people, Fiever warned that the Grand Griffe gang is infiltrating nearby communities after attacking Pointe-Saint. Haiti's National Human Rights Defense Network has said that the gang was angry and that a local self-defense group was trying to limit gang activity in the Pointe-Saint and prevent it from profiting off a makeshift road toll it had recently established nearby. Grand Griffe has about 100 members that has been accused of crimes including murder, rape, robberies, and kidnappings. It was informed after former legislator Profine Victor began arming young men nearly a decade ago to secure his election and control of the area, according to the UN. Victor and the Grand Griffe leader, Luxon Elan, were sanctioned by the U.S. last month. Elan also was sanctioned by the UN Security Council, which noted that Grand Griffe is the largest and most powerful gang in Artibonite, committing 9 mass kidnappings from October 2023 to January 2024, including that of 157 people. A new mini-moon comes to Earth this fall. Earth's moon will have some company for a couple months this fall. Earth will be hosting a new guest this fall. No, it's not an alien, it's an asteroid. The space rock, which has been named 2024 PT5, has been traveling along its normal path around the Sun, but it will be temporarily pulled into Earth's gravitational orbit later this month. The object, which is around 33 feet long, was spotted by researchers in South Africa, who wrote about it in the journal Research Notes of American Astronomical Society this month. Some scientists have described 2024 PT5 as a mini-moon. What is a mini-moon? In simple terms, a mini-moon is a space object that is temporarily captured in a planet's orbit, as opposed to regular moons, which are permanent fixtures. The researchers say 2024 PT5 will travel around the Earth in a horseshoe path for about 2 months, from September 29th to November 25th. There is some disagreement among scientists about whether 2024 PT5 should be classified as a mini-moon, since it won't be making a full revolution around the Earth before the Sun's gravity pulls it back onto its normal path. This is not the first time a phenomenon has happened. In 2020, astronomers identified another mini-moon, 2020 CD3, which orbited the Earth for over a year. This also will not be the 2024 PT5's only visit. Scientists predict it will be captured again by Earth's gravity in 2055. Can we see it? Unfortunately, 2024 PT5 will not be visible to the naked eye, and home telescopes likely won't cut it. The object is too small and dim for typical amateur telescopes and binoculars. Carlos de la Fuente Marcos, one of the authors of the journal entry describing the asteroid, told Space.com. However, the object is well within the brightness range of typical telescopes used by professional astronomers, Marcos said. The asteroid was first observed using a telescope from the NASA-funded Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Loss Alert System. Despite that program's menacing name, scientists say there is no cause for the worry and assure that the 2024 PT5 is not on collision course with Earth. Severe solar storm may stress power grids as U.S. deals with major hurricanes. This photo, provided by NASA, taken by the Solar Dynamics Observatory, shows a solar flame, the bright flash in the center of the image on October 3rd, 2024. Cape Canaveral, Florida, a severe solar storm is headed to Earth that could stress power grids even more in the U.S. with major back-to-back hurricanes, space weather forecasters said Wednesday. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration issued a severe geomagnetic storm to watch for Thursday into Friday, after an outburst from the sun was detected earlier this week. Such a storm could temporarily disrupt power and radio signals. NOAA has notified operators of power plants on orbiting spacecraft to take precautions. It also alerted the Federal Emergency Management Agency about possible power disruptions. As the organization copes with the devastating aftermath of Hurricane Helene and gears up for Hurricane Milton barreling across the Gulf of Mexico towards Florida. Forecasters do not expect the latest solar storm to surpass the one they slammed Earth in May, the strongest in more than 2 decades. But they won't know for sure until it's just 1 million miles away, where spacecraft can measure it. Florida is far enough south to avoid any power disruptions from the solar surge, unless it gets a lot bigger, said scientist Rob Steenberg of NOAA's Space Weather Prediction Center. That adds a little bit more to the comfort level, Steenberg said. Why we're here is to let them know so they can prepare. Experts are more concerned about potential effects to the power grids in areas slammed by Hurricane Helene 2 weeks ago, said NOAA space weather forecaster Sean Dahl. The storm also may trigger northern lights as far south in the U.S. as the lower Midwest and Northern California, though exact locations and times are uncertain. According to NOAA, sky gazers are reminded to point their smartphones upward for photos. The devices often capture auroras that human eyes cannot. May's solar storm produces dazzling auroras across the northern hemisphere and resulted in no major disruptions. The sun is near the peak of its current 11-year cycle, sparking all the recent solar activity.